Alright, so welcome to 1.2 Rational Exponents. So if you know what rational exponent is, it's basically when you have a fraction as your exponent. So for example, if I have x to the power of 4 over 3, we're dealing with a rational exponent. So now we can look at this. Let's look at this. Yep. Using the power law, we can actually, just the simple number 9 can be written as 1 over 2 to the power of 2. So, what does this mean? So, whenever this leads perfectly to this, by the way. So, whenever you have 1 over n, it's basically a square root, if you understand what I mean. So, for example, let's picture that you have 49 to the 1 over 2. So, what do we do exactly in this case? So, you see, we have the power 1. So, basically, we can take it as 49 to the power of 1 and then 1 over 2. So, we're breaking this down. Now, this is to the half power. So, in the half power, we're basically doing this and then writing 49. And note that when you're just doing a square root, even though they don't write the 2, there is actually a 2 there. You just have to know it's there, but they just never write it. So, with that said, we can actually go on and crack these questions. So, number 49, this is going to be equal to 7. Now, what happened if you have 1 over 3? Well, it's a cube root. So whenever you have x to the power of 1 over n, this is going to be, let me write it somewhere else. Let me write it a little down here. So when you have x to the power of n, 1 over n, this is always going to be equal to n, the nth root of x. And that is that. So in here, we can see that this is the third root of negative 27. Now, unlike when you have, like, let's say 4, this is equal to plus minus 2, or when you have a negative 4, this is actually equal to plus minus 2i, because you have to account for the negative exponent. In a cube root, we actually do not have to worry about, well, we actually do not have to worry about the negative 27. So essentially, you're going to get an actual root because you're taking the cube root of it, which is negative 3. So if you don't have a calculator, you can just check cube. You can just go ahead and search cube root of negative 27, and that will give you the answer of negative 3. Usually, we expect you to calculate with a calculator because most people cannot do this just by hand. And then negative 1 over 3 is basically the same thing. When we have negative 8, so negative exponent, remember that you can never be negative. So instead of this, we'll write 1 over negative 8 to the 1 over 3. This case also called negative 8, the cube root of negative 8. And then, if you know, it's 1 over negative 2. And then the negative, we're going to move it to the front since it doesn't really matter where you put it. And then at the front, it just looks better. And that is the whole thing. Now, I broke it down a little earlier, but I'm going to do it again. So when you have, instead of 1 over n, you're going to have m to the n. So let's say you have negative a 4 over 3. So now what happens? So we're going to not care about 4 at this moment. We have to care about it a little later though. So we're not going to care about that for now. So we're going to we're going to break it down to, you know what? I think that works. Yeah, we'll do 4 and then 1 over 3. You can do 1 over 3 or 4, it doesn't matter. So you can evaluate this first, but then remember what this can be written as. You can go ahead and write this as the cube root of negative 8 to the power of 4. So basically, the top becomes the power of the inner, and this is basically the outside, the cube root. That is basically the same thing. Now, what happens when you have a decimal? Well, just convert it to a fraction. What is that? 5 over 2 negative. Negative 5 over 2. And then you do the same thing. 9 to the 1 over 2 to the power of 5, which is 3 to the power of 5. And you can evaluate that to be whatever. I just don't want to calculate. And then that is pretty much it. Now remember that everything, all of these here, this is just pure review. So the class, we don't have the class right now. We're just gonna review. All of this you should know. So let's do some questions. 2 to the 1 over 3. Oh, sorry. It's 3 to the 2. And then 37 is root 37. They're just telling you to write in radical form, and then root x, blah, blah, blah. That's for C. And then for 2, A is going to be, that's going to be 7, 1 over 2. And then 34, 1 over 2. Negative 11, 1 over 3. That's the ABC. So let me just do something. So negative, when the square root is going to equal to 1 over 2 x to the power of. And then the cube root is going to be equal to x to the 1 over 3. And then our general form, which I wrote earlier, is going to be equal to x to the 1 over n. Now let's do something even more advanced, which is around 6, somewhere here. We're going to do this. So let's see. X to the m over n. It's going to go ahead and equal to n root of x to the m. So these are the general forms that I want you guys to go ahead and memorize. Just keep it at the back of your head forever, forever, forever. These are the most basic exponent laws that I really think everyone should learn and they should understand. So go ahead, if you want to do it, pause and do all of these questions right now, 1 to 7. Remember, math is not a spectator sport. Let's go.